Hello and welcome to part 1 in a series of videos that I'm putting out this week where I break down all the fights taking place this weekend at UFC on ESPN +8 from a betting perspective. Now before we go any further, I want to say a massive thank you to all of you that took the time out of your day to watch my videos last week and also hit the like button. Usually I try and incentivize hitting the like button by offering a bonus video, and I didn't have time to do that last week because we had KSW, we had Bellator, we had Cage Warriors, we had LFA, Titan, UFC. It was a huge week, so I knew I would be busy. I knew I wouldn't be able to get all the videos out, but you liked the videos anyway, and that means a lot to me. We can see here, absolutely smashed the likes last week, and the likes really help the channel to grow, guys. The more likes these videos get, the more these videos will be shared by YouTube and put in front of other people, and that will help the channel grow, so I can't thank you enough. So this week is a little bit quieter for MMA. If we look at the betting schedule on my website, we've got a UFC event on Saturday, we've got an Invicta event, I believe, on Friday for guys in the United States, and also we have got a Bellator event on Saturday as well, but this is a small European series Bellator event. So to repay you guys for hitting the thumbs up button on those videos last week and supporting me, whatever happens this week, I promise you I'll do a bonus video. 100% I will do a bonus video this week as well as get all 4 parts of this video out. This week isn't too busy, should be able to get that done. Now, this Invicta event, from a fan perspective, is amazing. I'm actually looking forward to this weekend's Invicta event more than the UFC and more than Bellator, because I love one-night tournaments. I really don't care who competes in one-night tournaments. I just think they're brilliant. They're like a throwback to the Pride days. I get nostalgic. I just love it. It reminds me of when I was a kid and I'd look forward to like the Royal Rumble or the WrestleMania or something like that. I fucking love one-night tournaments. But unfortunately, over the last sort of few months, the last sort of 6 months, betting on Invicta has kind of died. If you go back a year or two ago, most betting websites would take bets on Invicta and the max bet limits were quite, well, they weren't, I'm not going to say they were high, but they were reasonable. Whereas betting's now died on Invicta. Very few betting websites will let you bet Invicta, particularly if you live in Europe. And it's just no real money to be made there because the max bet limits are pretty small. So I won't be researching this one, although for a fan perspective, it is brilliant. And I just wanted to mention that because I'm going to let you guys decide what bonus video that I do this week. Would you like to see a bonus video where I break down Bellator Birmingham from a betting perspective? Or would you like me to do a bonus video like I normally do for the UFC, where I do a Q&A and answer all your questions from the live chat and also try to find a decent value prop bet for every single one of these fights? If you don't know what a prop bet is, a prop bet would be, for example, Cerrone to win inside the distance. It's a highly specific bet. So let me know what you'd like. Would you like me to break down Bellator as a thank you to show my appreciation for you to like these for you liking these videos, or would you like a prop bet Q&A video? Now, whichever you decide, let me know in the comments below, and whichever video is kind of getting the most mentions is the one that I will do. And the bonus video will probably be recorded and uploaded on Friday because I'm a bit busy on Saturday. I'm actually going to Cardiff City's last home game of the season against Crystal Palace, even though we're already pretty much fucking relegated. But I'll get that out on Friday. So let me know in the comments below. Do you want the Bellator video or the UFC prop bet Q&A video? Let me know. We'll get it done. But now, let's jump into the first fight that I want to talk about this week, which is going to be Sergey Spivak, or Spivak, I don't even know how you pronounce it, against the big ticket Walt Harris. Big fan of Walt Harris. And before we go into talking about this fight from a betting perspective, I'm just going to leave some of Spivak's past fights running in the background as I break this fight down, because there's nothing specific that I really want to call out about Spivak. But I'm just going to leave his fights playing in the background so you can kind of get an impression of what he brings to the table this Saturday night against Harris. So to kick things off, Spivak, he is the guy with the blonde hair in the blue corner. And he's making his UFC debut this weekend against Harris on 3 weeks' notice. Obviously, I always say this, but I'll keep repeating it. A massive percentage of fighters lose when they make their UFC debut, and an even bigger percentage of them lose when they take a debut on short notice. So already the odds are stacked against Spivak. But it is very hard to gauge how good he is, because if we just pause this here for a second and look at his record, we can see that his record is very padded. He has fought a very low level of opponent. I mean, you know, Tony Lopez is an absolute legend, but he's in his 40s now. Travis Fulton, you know, a bit of a cult figure in MMA, but again, he's very old. And if you just look at the records of the guys that he's been facing, you know, doesn't really instill much confidence. Also, the majority of his fights have been in this Ukrainian promotion called WWFC, which is, you know, looks like they're throwing him easy matchups, which is a bit of a concern. And because pretty much all of his career fights have ended in the first round, there isn't much in-cage competitive time to judge him on. And because the level of opponent that he's fought is so bad, it's really hard to gauge how good he is. Now, that makes this tricky, because you can't write a fighter off because they haven't fought anyone. I hate that expression when you hear people say, oh, but they haven't fought anyone. And just to pause it here, guys, I wanted to just show you this. It's quite funny. The best part about this fight video, fuck these guys, don't bother looking at the fighters. Keep an eye on this crazy kid in an red Indian hat, or I don't even know what it is. It's Cowboys and Indians. He's wearing an Indian's hat, just going fucking crazy in the background. I just thought it was pretty funny. Keep an eye on him as the fight plays out. I don't even know if I've already gone too deep in the fight where he starts dancing and stuff. It just amused me throughout the fight. The camera will show him going absolutely crazy in the background. But this guy Spivak, it's difficult because of the level of opponent he's fought. He hasn't really faced any resistance to gauge how good he is. But you know me, I always say it doesn't matter who a guy's fought. You should still be able to determine how good they are from the techniques they display inside the cage. And Spivak isn't blowing my hair back, to be honest. This performance, more than possibly any other, is an indicator that he's not particularly dangerous with his striking. Now, I know that Tony Lopez has got a pretty legendary chin and that he's extremely tough, but he allows Spivak to basically tee off on him in this fight, and it takes a long time to put Tony Lopez away, which indicates to me that Spivak probably doesn't really have that one-shot KO power. And we know Tony Lopez isn't a very strong wrestler, doesn't really have any kind of takedown defense. So the fact that the Spivak isn't able to easily get into the ground, there's this kid again cheering Spivak on. But the fact that Spivak's not totally able to ragdoll a guy like Tony Lopez that is a pure boxer, that doesn't really have any takedown defense or ground game, is a sign that Spivak's grappling isn't that great either. And remember that this fight took place, you know, around about 7 or 8 months ago in September. So unlikely he will have improved too much since then. There's the Indian kid, guy wearing the Indian hat going crazy again. But yeah, this fight makes it really difficult to gauge how good Spivak is. But at the same time, you know, you can't write him off just because he hasn't fought anyone. So talking about Walt Harris, I absolutely love Walt Harris. I think he's a brilliant fighter. I think he's one of the best heavyweights in the world. I think if he really applied himself and focused and fought smart, he could be a top 5 fighter. But unfortunately, there are a couple weaknesses holding him back. Now, there's plenty of things that he does well. He's one of the most technical strikers in the heavyweight division. He's one of those heavyweights that's on the smaller side, so he has the cardio to fight at a high pace for 3 rounds. He's very technical. He's got legit KO power in every shot. He throws a wide range of strikes, nice punches, very heavy kicks, and he also fights out of the southpaw stance, which can cause inexperienced fighters like Spivak a big problem. You know, guys that have only fought against a low level of opponent throughout their career, and Spivak's only 24 years old, and Harris is a very technical, very experienced southpaw. So definitely a massive step up in competition for Spivak. Definitely a very tough fight. But here we could basically see Tony Lopez is taking a bit of a beating here, and essentially in this position he just kind of quits. He doesn't want to be in there anymore. So if we go on to the next fight, this this fight's probably a better illustration of the low level of opponent that Spivak's been fighting. You know, this guy just covered in tattoos, probably just a local tough guy. I mean, much smaller than Spivak, doesn't really look that athletic, and again, he's just a body that's thrown in there to take an L, and it doesn't take long before Spivak lands some decent shots on him, and then this guy Ivo Cook blatantly looks for a way out there. We can see Spivak throw him to the ground, but really not much technique there, more done with power and explosion, and it really doesn't take long here for this guy Ivo Cook to just kind of give up. You can see him, you know, doesn't really try and fight out of this position. Just, you can see there he kind of went to turn to his side and turtle up to give the referee an opportunity to stop it. The referee didn't stop it, so then Ivo tried to fight his way out of that position. But again, you know, there are lots of signs in this fight that Ivo Cook is looking for a way out, waiting for the referee to stop it. And at any point in time, as soon as Spivak starts to let his hands go, the referee's going to have no option but to stop it. Here we can see, you know, Cook not really doing a very good job of defending himself, and the fight's going to be stopped any second. Just let the sequence play out. There we go. Spivak jumps on a rear naked choke without any hooks in, and Ivo Cook's just waiting for the referee to stop it. That's all he's waiting for here, just trying to survive. The referee's not stopping it though. Cook's not really doing a good job of defending himself. And any second now, do believe the fight will be over. Just some ground and pound, and eventually the referee stops it. So moving on, we'll actually skip this fight against Travis Fulton, so the fight doesn't end up being, this video doesn't end up being mega long. But this fight in particular was one that amused me. It's Sergey Spivak against Luke Morton, just because of how Luke Morton looks. You know, Morton just basically looks like an English football hooligan that should be in Spain throwing patio furniture at people. Really shouldn't be competing in mixed martial arts. I mean, look at this guy. I mean, we'll get into how the fight starts, but this guy literally, if you just go up and down the country, up and down England on a Friday or Saturday night, and just go into any pub in England, any pub or bar, and you'll see a guy that looks like Luke Morton. Like, he just looks like a football hooligan. I'm amazed they didn't let him bring some patio furniture in with him. I mean, at least let him wear St. George's Cross face paint. I mean, does this guy have any business being in the octagon with a pro MMA fighter? I mean, I'm British. I've never heard of Luke Morton. I'm sure he's always going to be the toughest guy at the barbecue. But, I mean, it just illustrates the low level of opponents Spivak has faced up until this point in his career, and why Walt Harris is such a big step up in competition. As you can see, it doesn't take long for Spivak to start landing some big shots and get Morton looking very awkward and uncomfortable in there, turning away from punches. And this fight doesn't last very long at all. You can see just by the way Morton moves that he's not really an experienced fighter, and he's very awkward in there. And this is just a body that's been thrown in to gift Spivak a win in this promotion, WWFC, that seemed to want to build him up and make him look very good on paper. But any minute now, the finish comes. There it is, inside 40 seconds. It's all over. So yeah, guys, that is Spivak. But as you can see from the footage I showed you, from his padded record, from all these first round finishes, tough to gauge where he's at. Now, I've already said Walt Harris is a great fighter, but you can see that his record's a little bit sketchy at 12-7. And obviously, fights aren't fought on paper. I don't care what a fighter's record is. But his record does tell a story of the one weakness that I feel has really held Walt Harris back throughout his career, which is that sometimes he just shows up and puts in a really tentative, passive performance. And there have been occasions throughout his career where it's clear he's got a big technical advantage over his opponent, but for whatever reason, he just doesn't let his hands go, he doesn't pull the trigger, and that winds up with fights being much closer than they need to be, which is why he's been involved in a few split decisions throughout his career, because he just doesn't let his hands go. And there have been occasions in Walt Harris's past fights, particularly his last fight against Andrei Arlovski, where I was just screaming at the TV, because if he would just go up 10-20%, he could dominate fights. But instead, he gets into these, passive, tentative, close fights. Even though he can outclass his opponent, which gives the judges an opportunity to get it wrong and score the fight in favour of his opponent. And that's why it is dangerous. It's always a risk betting Walt Harris, because he doesn't have the best fight IQ, doesn't always realise when he's behind in a fight, and doesn't always do a particularly good job of putting his stamp on rounds to ensure the judges can't get it wrong. So if we look at the odds at the moment, Walt Harris is currently around about a 1.63 favourite. Well, let's start with the other guy. Let's start with his opponent. So Spivak, currently around about a 2.40 favourite, which is plus 240 for an implied probability of 42%. Obviously, don't need to be a rocket scientist to know that he's a bad bet. Very inexperienced, UFC debut, short notice fight on 3 weeks notice, completely untested, has a very high level opponent. You cannot bet Spivak. But Walt Harris obviously is a very, very skilled fighter, so is he worth a bet? So at the current odds of around 1.63, that gives him a money line odds of minus 159, an implied probability of 61%. You know, in order for me to place a bet, guys, you know me, I have to love a bet. Like, look at the bet we won on Glover last week to beat Ion Cutelaba. When I put that video out, or when I gave that betting tip to my members on my website, he was a 2.45 underdog. Should never have been that big of an underdog. We had an enormous 25 to 30% margin over the betting websites. And with the implied probability of Walt Harris already being 61%, and with Spivak being a completely unknown entity, I don't see how you get any value here, because to bet Harris and get value, you'd have to cap him at 66 to 70% chance of winning. And I just think that's unrealistic, especially in the heavyweight division where everyone hits hard. I mean, I know Spivak doesn't look great, but he's a big boy at 6'3". He's young, hungry, probably very motivated for his UFC debut, whereas sometimes Harris is a bit hesitant, a bit tentative, a bit passive. It's just not a smart bet, so I would recommend passing on this fight. It's an easy pass for me. Now, the next fight that I want to cover, bring my notes up for this one. We've gone all digital. I bought an iPad so that I could stop scrabbling around with bits of paper, and it's fucking brilliant. Although, see this here, guys? See this? See this? That is an Apple Pencil, which you need to write notes on the iPad Pro. Apple are fucking gangsters. They take the piss. That is a total rip-off. £120 for a piece of plastic. £120 for that. £120. That's the shit I need to get into. Instead of fucking trying to make money gambling for a living, I need to start selling pieces of plastic for £120, because they are fucking balling out of control. And mugs like me will pay them for it. Stupid can you be? I got ripped off, but it works good, to be fair. So, you know, I do begrudge paying £120 for a piece of plastic, but it is going to make my job easier, so it is what it is. But getting back into this, I've got my notes up now. When I saw the Macy Chiasson was fighting Sarah Moras, I've got to be honest with you, I got a little bit excited, because when I saw this matchup, I thought it would be a free money bet. I thought, oh great, Chiasson's fighting Moras, Chiasson's going to dominate everywhere. That's free money. I'll fire off a big bet on Chiasson. We'll take an easy winner and everyone will live happily ever after. Until I saw the odds, and then I was very disappointed. Because if we look at the odds at the moment, Chiasson is just totally unplayable. So if we say the average odds available are 1.17, giving her so that's money line odds of minus 588 for an implied probability of 85%. I mean, to bet Chiasson and get any value at all, you've got to give her a 90% chance or better of winning, and that's just impossible when you take into consideration the fact that we have bad judges. Sarah Moras is Canadian, so she'll have home advantage. You know, Chiasson might have a bad weight cut. She might come in with an injury. Sarah Moras has got tricky submissions on the ground. Chiasson could throw a kick and break a fucking leg, Anderson Silva style. There's just so many reasons why you can't bet Chiasson at those odds. And if we look at the odds on Sarah Moras at around about, call it an average of say 5.5, which is plus 450 for an implied probability of 18%. This fight to me is very similar to Angela Hill versus Jodie Esquibel last week. Not from a stylistic point of view, but from an odds point of view and a betting logic point of view. Because last week you look at Angela Hill, there's no way Hill should have been that big of a favourite. But at the same time, you look at Jodie Esquibel and you're like, is she really going to win? No, probably not. So you're putting your money in a lot of danger. And I feel the same about this fight. You know, is Sarah Moras going to win? Probably not. Can she win? Yeah, she can win. She can win. But it's very unlikely. So betting on her is putting your money in a lot of danger. So this is just an easy pass for me, guys. I mean, I'll quickly talk about how I assess the fight. But it's an easy pass. So, you know, you look at Sarah Moras, she's got no striking at all, no striking defense. She's very easy to hit. She doesn't pose a threat to Chiasson standing at all. If Chiasson keeps this fight standing, she'll dominate. But also on the ground, she has a big advantage. She's way more technical than Moras. She's a much better strangler. She's got much better grappling control. Sarah Moras, one of the big weaknesses in her overall skill set is that she is primarily a grappler, but she loves being on her back. She's very comfortable being on her back, and she will pull guard and roll to her back to attack off her back frequently. And I fucking hate that, because as you know, in MMA, 9 times out of 10, being on your back is a losing position, and I hate to see fighters put themselves in a losing position. So if these girls do go to the ground, which I expect them to, because they're both primarily grapplers, we'll probably see Moras easily give up a takedown so that she can be on her back or pull guard or roll to her back or something, and Chiasson just chipping away at her from top position. Now, Moras likes to go to her back because she's got very nasty triangles and arm bars. She's very offensive off her back, so it's very possible she could catch Chiasson with a Hail Mary submission on the ground. It's unlikely, but it's possible. But I basically see, aside from Moras hitting a Hail Mary submission, I see Chiasson dominating everywhere. But that fight's an easy pass for me. Chiasson should be a very safe pick for DraftKings. I mean, if you really want to put her in your parlays or accumulators, you're probably good to do that as well. But absolutely no value there. I mean, it's not even worth talking about from a betting perspective. And then if we move on to the next fight that I want to talk about in today's video, which is Derek Brunson against Elias Theodorou. Now, Derek Brunson was one of the first names that jumped out at me when I saw this fight card. I thought that he would be a great bet against Elias Theodorou, because this fight is one of those types of fights that I like to call a checkmate matchup. And a checkmate matchup is when one person is fighting someone that they have an advantage over everywhere, and the person they're fighting doesn't really have the skills to hurt them in any way, so they can't submit him and they can't knock him out. And stylistically, this is a checkmate matchup, because there is nothing Elias Theodorou can do to Brunson in this fight to hurt him. You know, Elias Theodorou is primarily a grappler, but he doesn't have very good offensive wrestling. He really struggles to get in deep on his opponent's hips and take them down. And as we know, Derek Brunson is an NCAA Division II level wrestler. Very, very difficult to take down, even harder to hold down. You know, out of the two, there's no doubt that Brunson is the stronger MMA grappler and wrestler here. And when it comes to striking, Theodorou has absolutely no boxing at all. No power in his hands, no boxing. I mean, it's quite remarkable that he can barely throw a punch after he's been training MMA for this long. So he's not going to hurt Brunson standing either. So after what I've just said, you would assume that Brunson would be a very safe bet for this week. And to be honest with you, after doing research, I don't think he is. Which is really annoying, because Elias Theodorou is just an awkward bastard. He is just an awkward bastard. He doesn't like to engage. He really doesn't like to engage. If you look at his record, he is an absolute decision machine. If we look at this, his last 7 fights have gone the distance. His last 7 fights have gone the distance in the middleweight division, a division with so many dangerous guys. And the reason why so many of his fights go the distance, because he doesn't like to engage. He will not put himself in danger. He gets on his bike and he circles away from his opponent for 15 minutes, and he's got the cardio to stay on the outside and use loads of footwork to avoid engaging, which makes it very difficult for his opponents to hurt him, because as soon as they get into a range where they can land a significant strike, he's fucking gone. He's out of there. And if they do land a significant strike, 9 times out of 10, because Elias Theodorou is always on the outside and circling away from them, it doesn't land with full impact, because when the punch is coming his way, he's moving away from it. So it's always a glancing shot, never a clean shot where he's moving on to it, which could knock him down or land with a lot of impact. And that's what makes this a tricky fight, because Brunson's better than Theodorou everywhere, no doubt about it. Significantly better striker, significantly better wrestler, but getting your fucking hands on Theodorou is very difficult, as he showed in his last fight against Eric Anders. And Brunson has got very poor footwork. He struggles to cut the octagon off. He struggles to find a way to get into range to land on his opponents. And for that reason, what we see from Brunson is he tends to blitz and run forward in straight lines. So he is very heavy-handed, but he's not that technical. And if you go back and watch his fights, one of the reasons why so many of his fights have ended in the first round is because he's the complete opposite of Theodorou. You know, Theodorou will not take any risks. Theodorou will not engage. He'll run away from his opponent for 15 minutes. Brunson's exactly the same. He will put himself in danger and run into danger. And this is why, you know, sometimes it works out for him and he lands a bomb and gets his opponent out of there in the first round. Sometimes it doesn't, and he gets caught with a big counter and put away. And that's just Brunson's game, and that's Theodorou's game. But it's tricky because Theodorou won't be there for him to hit. Every time Brunson rushes forward, Theodorou will circle out of danger. And that makes it a tricky matchup for Brunson, because even though he's better everywhere, he might not be able to get into a range and into positions to show it off. Now, another thing that makes this fight tricky to bet on is that obviously UFC on ESPN +8, like even Tapology have got it wrong. Even Tapology have listed the name of the event wrong. This is actually UFC on ESPN +8, not +9. But if you look at this event, it's taking place in Canada. Theodorou's Canadian, which means he's got home advantage on his side. We know that judges are biased in Canada towards Canadian fighters, so if it does end up being a close, scrappy, weird fight, the judges are more likely to give Theodorou the nod. And he's got just such an awkward style. He likes to just circle on the outside, throwing these weird kicks with nothing on them really. Weird leg kicks, weird body kicks. They don't really hurt their opponents, but they do enable him to rack up strikes on paper, which, if you are a guy like Brunson, the struggles to close the octagon off and trap people and get into a range where they can land, that could be the difference. Theodorou might just chip away at him with shitty kicks from the outside and get an ugly decision. But I'm pretty sure that in this fight, even though Theodorou's Canadian, we'll see some... Initially, we'll see some... Woo! Yeah, we'll see some Ric Flair woos! Lots of those in the beginnings. It's going to be boring as fuck. And then towards the end, I guarantee we'll see some booing. And then I guarantee this fight will also probably end in split decision. And people will probably boo then because they'll disagree with whichever way the judges scored it. So this is a total shit show of a fight. I mean... Brunson, I do lean Brunson just because out of pure principle I can't pick Theodorou because Brunson's got the advantage everywhere. But if we look at the odds at the moment, best odds on Brunson's currently around about 1.90, which is minus 111 for an implied probability of 53%. So roughly even. And if we look at the odds on Theodorou, currently around about the same. So this is very much a 50-50 fight, which I agree with. Someone's probably going to win an awkward, ugly, scrappy decision that people are going to argue about for ages on Twitter. But really, who gives a shit? Neither guy is a very good bet. I would just... It's an easy pass. It's not a good fight to bet on. You can agonise over this. You can debate this. You can feel very strong that one guy is going to win. But it's all just a waste of energy, because 9 times out of 10 it's going to be a close, ugly fight. Someone's going to win a split decision. You're much better off saving your brain power and energy and focusing it on another fight where there may be better betting opportunities. So that is it for today's video, guys. I hope you liked it. I will be back tomorrow with part 2 of this video, where I will be breaking down the main event between Donald Cerrone and Iaquinta. So make sure you come back for that. Also, don't forget to hit the like button on this video. And one more thing, let me know in the comments below which bonus video you would like me to do this week. Would you like me to break down Bellator Birmingham, which takes place on Saturday? Or would you like me to do a Q&A prop bet video for UFC on ESPN Plus 8? Let me know in the comments below, guys. But have a great night, take care, and I will see you tomorrow.
Too many thoughts on my mind, I can't sleep at night, so I just keep writing. I don't need no help, I don't need opinions, so don't waste my time then. I just been living online, my city don't show me no love, and that's fine. Fuck local radio stations, I got more plays than all of these rappers combined. I'm going again, I've been going in, I'm fed up with so many things. I gotta just let it all out, I'm talking about the shit they've been talking about.